All right, everyone, we're going to get started. Welcome to the Development Review Commission hearing for November 12th, 2019. The Development Review Commission is created to hold public meetings and hearings to provide analysis and recommendations to the City Council regarding general land use policies and applications where the Commission has recommendatory power, and to render final decisions on specific applications where the Commission has final decision-making power, including, but not limited to, all aspects of a proposed and future development. The Development Review Commission recognizes that the creation of a desirable environment throughout the city for residents, businesses, and industry is a prime requisite for the interdependence of land values, aesthetics, and good site planning by promoting harmonious, safe, attractive, and compatible development that is therefore considered to be in the best interest of public health, safety, and general welfare. Any person aggrieved by a final decision of the Development Review Commission may file an appeal to the City Council within 14 calendar days after the Development Review Commission has rendered its decision. So magic number 14 if we do something today you don't like. The Development Review Commission recommendations to the City Council are not final decisions. Roll call. Who do we have with us today? To my far left, Andrew Johnson, Phil Amorosi, Scott Sumners. I am acting chair, usually vice chair, Mike DiDomenico. And from the far right, Tom Brown, Don Casano, Michelle Schwartz. With us from staff, we got a lot of staff here tonight. Chad Weaver, Ryan Levesque, Saparna Dasgupta, Steve Abrahamson, Karen Stovall, Obinia Kingsby, Lee Jimenez, Dalton Guerra, Blake Shimke, and Joanna Berry, taking notes and keeping us all in line. As I stated, most of you already heard this in pre-session. We have 8 items on our agenda today. Items 4, 5, and 6 are being proposed for the consent agenda. Items 5 and 6 are being proposed for the consent agenda. It looks like a member of the public wants to be heard on item number 4, which is Raising Cane's. So we will be handling items 5 and 6 as a part of our consent agenda. It's our intention to vote on those 2 items in a single vote in the affirmative and to approve them. Anybody here, raise your hand if you wanted to be heard on those items. I don't see anybody, so we'll deal with those as consent. Item number 1 on our agenda is the minutes for our study session of September 10th, 2019. Item number 2 is the minutes for the regular meeting of that same date. We spoke about that in pre-session, didn't have any changes to it. Does anybody want to propose approval? Don't all jump up.
Chair DiDomenico, I make a motion to approve the study session and regular meeting minutes for September 10th.
Seconded by Scott Summers. All those in favor, raise your hand. And that's unanimous, 7-0. In addition, during pre-session, we reviewed the 2019 annual report. There was one edit that was suggested, and staff will be making it as to a total in the chart. Do I have a motion to approve as amended?
Mr. Chairman, motion to approve the 2019 annual report as amended.
It's been moved by Commissioner Sumners and seconded by Commissioner Johnson. All those in favor? And also approved unanimously. We are rolling. How about the consent agenda? This side of the table. Make sure
Mr. Chairman,
there we go.
make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
It's been moved and seconded by seconded by Commissioner Amorosi. All those in favor of approval of the consent agenda? Approved 7-0. That brings us to item number 4. Item number 4 is a request for development plan review for a new 2,630 square foot building for Raising Cane's located at 5201 South McClintock Drive. And if the applicant would come up and give us a presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, board members. My name is Jason Morris with the Morris 2525 East Arizona Biltmore Circle on behalf of the applicant. Given the procedural position, this was possibly being placed on the consent agenda, and given the fact that we do have interest from the public, rather than giving a full-blown presentation, with your permission, Mr. Chair, I'd love to hear staff's presentation, but more specifically, I'd love to hear any comment from the public so that I can address that in particular.
All right, if we go that route, and I'm fine, it's your party, so to speak. If we do that, and staff will probably give an abbreviated presentation, and then we can hear from the public as to their comments. But I'd prefer at that point that you really address more what you've heard during the previous two groups' presentations, and not then take us back to a full-blown presentation.
I couldn't agree more,
All
Mr.
right.
Chair.
Unless it's germane to answering the questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Kingsby.
Good evening, Commission. Name is Obina Kingsby, Planner 2 at the City of Tempe. Raising Cane's is requesting a development plan review for a 2,630 square foot building for a drive-through restaurant. The location is on the southeast corner of Baseline Road and McClintock Drive. The property is on PCC 1. A neighborhood meeting was not required for this project, as it's just a development plan review. I did not receive any public input prior to this meeting or during the writing of my staff report or anything like that. So no public input has been received by staff or from staff. There are two staff. And then staff recommends approval of the project subject to conditions of approval. The applicant has had an opportunity to review those conditions and was in agreement with them. And I can answer any questions you have on behalf of staff.
If you wouldn't mind, just since we're on the record now, addressing, Commissioner Brown had brought up some points in the study session and
Okay.
gotten some feedback.
Yeah.
How do we protect ourselves that the screening of the mechanical units on the roof will be sufficient and per code?
I don't know if you can see that dot here, but in the back, the upper gray portion here is actually where all the mechanical will be screened. So that upper parapet is kind of a secondary parapet wall. So that's where all the mechanical is concealed behind that wall.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Brown, is there anything further you want to take?
Well, I was just going to rattle off the steps. So they've committed that it will be 360 degrees around the units, and they will be higher than the units, which the section maybe didn't show that clearly. So
Yeah.
that's great.
That's
I
correct.
think we can call that
Good.
for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Kingsby. I will, unless there are any other questions from the commission, don't see any. All right, so I have one from the public. If there's anybody else, fill out a card. Thomas Galvin.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Thomas Galvin with Rose Law Group on behalf of Pollock Investments. They own the parcels directly to the east at the Peter Piper Plaza. We've been negotiating with the owners of the property and with Raising Cane's over the last couple of years. There was a previous use that was proposed that we were opposed to for a variety of reasons, but we do support the proposed use now. We have executed with them a letter of understanding involving a cross-access easement. There's nothing been recorded yet, but we look forward to working and cooperating with them, and we appreciate all the work and diligence that they've done so far. And we're happy for any questions
So
tonight.
you've seen the landscape and the cross easement of the one point of entry between the two properties. You guys like that, comfortable with it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Terrific.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions, commissioners? No, seeing none. Thank you very much. All right. Commissioners, any discussion? Do we want to hear a motion? Do you want to respond to their
Mr.
favorable
Chair,
comments?
I'm outraged at his accusation. I'm fine, thank you.
Tear down that wall. There we go. All right. Commissioners, what do we think?
Mr. Chairman, just in reviewing the case, the one concern that I had was two driveways very, very close to each other. But when looking at the history, I think we saw there were 4 driveways in the past, and now there's only going to be 1. And so I think that's good. With that, I'm happy to support or make a motion if others don't have comment.
We could get a motion on the table and then still discuss.
Motion, make a motion.
So, Mr. Chairman, motion to approve let me get this straight, PL 190195 for Raising Cane's.
Second.
It was moved by Commissioner Summers and seconded by Commissioner Casano. I'm going to interpret that the motion carries all of the stipulations as drafted, just the way they're drafted. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you to the applicant. Let's see if you guys can beat that one on Warner to opening. They got a little bit of a head start, but
It's a low bar.
okay. The next case we're going to hear is item number 7. This is a request for 2 use permit standards, reducing the required front yard setback for the Dedic residence. In this case, if we can, are you the applicant? Yes. Come on up. Did I mess up the name? Am I close?
No, you didn't.
Dedic?
Yes.
Dedic.
Yes, the only, I say Dedic, but
Dedic.
Dedic works out good.
Okay. Croatian?
No, Bosnian.
Bosnian.
Yes.
Oh, I said that.
It is what it is.
If you could just name and address for the record.
It's 1030 East Carson Drive, Tempe. And then what's happened, my property, I mean, I don't know if you have any aerial view pictures. It was probably messed up from the beginning. But anyway, I have to park 2 cars and I cannot park them in front of the house because on the left side, I have a stop sign, which by law requires me to be 30 feet back to be able to park. So I encroach my own driveway. If I try to park on the right side, I encroach my neighbor's driveway. So I was looking for a solution how I can put a 2-car garage, and then I can put single-car garage without problems, but two-car, I need those 4 feet, so it would be 20 feet. It would be, proper size for 2 cars. That's basically.
I have one question. So this garage would back up to the neighbor that's directly to the
That's
south
correct.
of you. Have they commented? Are they aware of the plans?
They are aware, and they don't have any
No
problems
problem.
with that.
I know
No.
there's really no windows on that side of their house.
No.
That they're not going to look at the back of your
No.
building. Okay. All right. Other questions, commissioners? Mr. Brown.
So my only objection to this is when you drive north on, I think it's Carson,
Yes.
the blank wall is going to be in your right flat ahead of you before you turn to the right a little bit, and it looks a little stark. You show one window facing which direction? Is that the north elevation? Does window face?
I can include the window on that side.
I was going to say it would look less like a garage and more like part of a house if there were windows on the 3 windows on the lower part. Looks like it might be a workshop or a motorcycle shop.
It's going to be storage. Yes.
And so maybe that's contrary to your function, but I thought maybe that would make it less stark if it actually had windows, so that the southeast end of the building looked more like a piece of a residence instead of a storage building.
Like living space, yeah.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's a deal killer. It's really a suggestion.
You mean the window that would face the Carson, because it's a cul-de-sac, of course.
Yeah, and then if you ever work in there, it's a great. If it's a workshop, it's a great.
That 10 by 10 area is going to be basically storage for tools and nothing, It would be part of the garage, but it would be just storage basically. But yes, I can include the window. That's not.
Thank you.
That's not the issue, I can put. I need a slab to be that size, but I can put the window doors in. I mean, that's not a problem.
Mike, I have a question.
Commissioner Amorosi.
The space between the south wall and your actual house, the walkway, is that going to remain open, or are you going to put a fence in there, or you see the corner, the south, would be where your driveway, where the driveway is,
That's,
that
3
little
feet.
gap between the two houses.
That's it could be gate, small gate, or could be closed. It's
So I was
just-
wondering what your idea, what your plan, were you
I was
gonna leave it
initially
open?
planning to put just 2-foot gate, just to be able to walk through in case of something that needs to be.
Because I noticed you have the fence back behind there. I didn't know if you were going to take that or leave that, or how that was going to work.
Yeah, that's going to be open. That's going to be a gate. You meaning on the right side on that?
Yes, yeah, you're right, my left.
Yeah,
side.
on my, yeah. Yeah, that's going to be gate right there, yes.
Okay, all right.
On the back side, that way you can access the backyard, yes. To be able to walk in the back, yes, that's correct.
All right, thanks.
Other questions? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Stan, just one quick question. Mr. Gary, is that something that you can just work with him on placement of a window that kind of meets the desire to dress up that south
Yes.
elevation?
Is it something we can do in plan check? Or Saparna or Steve, somebody? Yeah.
Yeah. just to
Something
make
that
sure
happened
that-
on the back end on the building permit side in plan check, we can have
Yeah.
them add windows to the elevation.
Perfect. So we don't need a stipulation for that. We can just,
But
Thank you. It would depend upon whether the commission wants it to be an actual condition. It's to your pleasure.
I like the idea. I think that the applicant was amenable to it. Are you comfortable with just
Yes.
going this way, or?
Sure.
Okay. We will just go with the honor system here and not draft the stipulation.
Thank you, Vice Chair DiDomenico.
Anything else to add?
I don't have much to add.
No.
Just the fact that it's in the R16 zoning district. Excuse me. And we had worked with Mr. Dedich to first establish the front lot line. It's kind of a confusing lot. So you can see that that curved lot line is actually what we consider the front lot line. And so that's why we're having to get the use permit standard to reduce it by 20% to get him that 4 feet. And then the second use permit standard, which may have slipped through the cracks, I don't know if anybody had mentioned it, is for the detached buildings. It's like a 1 foot to 1 foot ratio for height and setback. And because of the height, it needs to be reduced to the district setback, which is 5 feet. So that's why we're hearing it, the 2 use permit standards.
Got it. Thank you. And there used to be some really tall palm trees in front, but those aren't there any longer, right? They're gone. All right. Thank you very much. Any other comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion from the commission.
Make a motion to approve the Dedich residence PL 190271.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Commissioner Amorosi, seconded by Commissioner Casano. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Approved unanimously. That brings us, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you for coming in and telling us about your case. This brings us to our final case of the evening. This is a hearing for East Line Village. And again, as a reminder to the public, we're taking testimony tonight, both from the public as well as from the applicant, answering questions, but we will not be taking action on this matter tonight. I do have one card from the public who wishes to be heard.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, for your record, my name is Manjula Vaz, law firm of Gamage and Burnham, and I am here tonight on behalf of Eastline Land Ventures. I'm going to give, as the chair directed, a brief presentation. I do want to talk about a couple of things, and then Jeff Behrens would like to make a couple of comments about the project. We did talk a little bit about this project in a prior study session. As you remember, this is a non-car dependent community. The Eastline Land Ventures is a joint partnership between DMB Apache Partners and Sunbelt Holdings, and I'm here on behalf of all three of them tonight. And I want to talk a little bit about I think I won't belabor the point, but just a couple of things. I think we all know what the property is on the south side of Apache. As you may remember, and you'll see a couple of things, Eastline Village is both the property that's on the north side and then, and on the south side. This is on the south side. It's actually built in phases, and the south side will be built in phases. We did have the river at Eastline Village, if you haven't seen it, open last week. I believe it had a grand opening. That's the affordable housing component of Eastline Village, which is a very nice community at the northeast corner of Apache and River. So I do want to make just that comment. Here's a larger picture. So as we move forward, we are now, and you may remember, there were some parcels that were a holdout in the original zoning case. So we are going to be rezoning the whole property and taking in some of those other parcels. Some properties can be rezoned from CSS and from R4 to MU4. And then we're going to put a new PAD on top of the entire project, and to the other parcels that are already zoned MU4. So as you may remember, this was the original Eastline Village on the south side in terms of kind of the phasing. And I won't go into the whole thing, but it was 13.56 acre site, multifamily kind of development we intended to become a village with retail in the center, buildings up to 90 feet in height and 698 units. Now what we're building is an innovative, what we call a people first mixed use neighborhood, and have Jeff talk a little bit about it, but non-car dependent. So it's a very similar concept, but it's more about living a different lifestyle, taking advantage of what's happened in the last several years, both in terms of alternative transportation, people who want to live next to light rail, use alternative modes of transportation. This is about living in a park and being part of the community versus living next to cars. But in terms of where we have about 636 multifamily units built out. We have bookable shared space. Jeff's going to talk a lot about that. We have landscape enhancements, and we want this to become not only it's a park for just our residents, but also for the community. And there's a lot of events here that we hope the community will become part of. This right here, and one thing we talked a lot about was the retail that, for all of us who live here, there's not a lot of people who are going to Apache, and there are going to be things as you start to see, even especially on the north side of Apache at Escalante Park, there's a lot of events happening there. And hopefully, as we start to develop the retail here, there'll be people who want to come, whether it's Broadway or even from South Tempe, to come up. And so we're trying to start to develop what's happening on the east side of Apache. So the other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is we're doing the PAD right now for the whole project. We are going to come back to you early next year and show you phase one, which will look like this. We have phase one commercial and phase one residential. I know I've talked to you, a couple of you, about what happens if, we certainly talked to the council, what happens if it doesn't work. And so we're building in phases. So if phase one, we have a lot of belief in this project. And we believe this is going to work, but if it doesn't, it's built in phases, and we'll come back and talk to you about what the options are. So right now it's just a PAD over the whole site, and then it looks like this, and this, and then we'll come back and do DPR in the new year. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff, and he's going to talk a little bit about their vision and what we see for the community, and then Jeff and I are happy to answer questions. I do want to mention that Christina's here, and she's, as you may know, the new president of Escalante, has been a big help, and she's the public who would like to talk. So I certainly would love for her to talk also.
Thank you. I'm Jeff Behrens from Cul-de-sac. As Manjula mentioned, this is a new concept for a mixed-use neighborhood. It's designed specifically for people who want to be able to live without a private vehicle. That means that the residential component does not include parking or vehicles for the residents, but there is ample parking for the retail component and the guests of the resident. And the way that we enable this lifestyle at the site is through its location, so near lots of amenities and jobs, through transportation, especially the light rail station, but also infrastructure for pedestrians, for bicycles, and shared mobility. And then third, the way that the property is managed. So there's 5 slides here. I'll just talk very briefly about each of them. First, on sustainability. The sustainability is something that we really put at the center of the design. And one of the biggest things that we do for this is enabling people to live a vibrant urban lifestyle without relying on a private vehicle. So for many people, transportation is one of their largest sources of carbon emissions. And by enabling our residents to live without a private vehicle, we're actually enabling them to have that source of emissions. In addition to that, we take other measures to have a light environmental footprint, including designing the buildings for cross ventilation, for lots of natural light. Almost 3/4 of the units have 3 sides of natural light, and other green building techniques. Regarding mobility, as I mentioned, the residents do not have private vehicles. This is intended to be a new option for people who want that lifestyle. There's lots of fantastic places for people to live who want to have a private car. This is meant to offer a new option. The way that we do this is obviously by having the light rail right there, but we also prioritize pedestrians and bicycles by having the bike path on Apache, as well as how bikes are handled on the site. And then third, through shared mobility, which includes things like car share, where there's a couple dozen cars on site in a fleet that we manage that are accessible to the residents and neighbors if they want to rent a car. Ride hailing, so around the perimeter of the site, we have designated pickup and drop-off zones. This makes it safe and convenient for the residents and the retail visitors to use ride sharing. And then third, for micro-mobility, things like shared scooters or bikes, that this is something that is very much still evolving, but we're intending to try to make the site safe for people who want to use those options. For bookable shared spaces, this is another component of the neighborhood designed to give people a vibrant lifestyle on the site. So in addition to traditional residential units and retail, we also have bookable spaces. So this is intended to give the residents more things that they can do on the site. So if they want to reserve a space for co-working or to reserve a space to host an event, we make that accessible. And these spaces, many of them are actually available to the neighborhood in addition to the residents. That's because our intention is for this to really be a destination for the whole valley, not just for the people who live there. And our goal is to be very welcoming to have others come by having parking for visitors and by having bookable spaces they can access. For management and security, the way that we are intending to manage the site is this is a rental community. We have on-site staff to take care of security, but also to do a more holistic community management role. So think about things like events, managing deliveries, and those types of logistics. Lastly, for the mobile app, so as part of the property management services that we provide, the goal is to give the residents a seamless experience for their life in the neighborhood. So this includes things like traditional property management components such as rent and repairs, but also things like the bookable spaces or accessing the mobility services that we facilitate. So one of the advantages of this being a neighborhood scale project is that as the manager of the property, we're able to negotiate on the behalf of our residents with transportation and logistics providers. So in this way, we can give our residents access to special deals with those partners. And because of their unique lifestyle choice of not having a private vehicle, they have specific needs that we're going to cater to. Those were the only points that I wanted to share, and I think we're happy to answer any questions.
Summers.
Just a question, if you could. It's great to see something like this on paper. What would be really helpful is to point out a precedent. Does this exist somewhere else in the nation?
Yeah. So the precedents that we like the most are actually from Europe and Japan. In the United States, though, there are precedents. Usually they're at the building scale, or there's something that's been repurposed. So for example, university towns or downtown centers are often redesigned to be more pedestrian friendly. One of the markers of this site and its uniqueness is actually doing that from scratch with the intention to facilitate this lifestyle. But we're big fans of the other places that have also done this.
Can you provide names or some details about some of the overseas locations?
Yes, so our favorite is Vauban, Germany. And this is a car-free neighborhood. It's probably the most recognized one in the world.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Casano.
Not to be negative, but what if the project doesn't lease?
That's why Manjula mentioned we're doing it in phases. So the first phase is something that we already are hearing a lot of excitement and demand for because there's not other options like this. And the expectation is that the first phase will show that this is something there's a lot of demand, and that will be why we build it from west to east through the site.
Basically, what I'm saying is that if there is a real problem as these phases go into place, leasing this, will you be back here asking for changes to this plan that would allow for on-site parking?
Yeah, so Don, let me Mr. Chair, Commissioner Camuscano, if you wouldn't mind. So, and then also want to mention, just to react to Scott's, one of Commissioner Sumner's questions. So one of the things when we started this is, you know, we have a development agreement, which was approved last week with the council, and I think we talked to you guys a little bit about it. And one of the points is exactly what you're talking about, because as opposed to what Jeff said, like, we are designing this from scratch. And as you may remember, the original plan of Eastline Village, it was to try to build an urban master plan community. And that's kind of when the original when DMB was involved. And so, you know, we have always said, like, we're taking a, you know, we're trying something new here, right? Like, I'm not, I mean, and we're not, but we're building it someplace where we've always said, like, let's try something, right? I mean, it's not doing anything on Apache, and it's not on the, we very specifically went to the south side of Apache because it's not surrounded by neighborhoods. So that, because, you know, south of us is like the UPS plant, and, you know, it's industrial. So we could try some things, to your point about maybe somebody brings cars, we'll deal with that. But we also, in that agreement, and we've talked to staff, we've talked to you, we've talked to the council. Yeah, our first phase is going to be residential and commercial as up there. If it doesn't lease, yeah, we are going to come back. And we've said to the council, and we're saying to you, you know, we are getting, there are certain things that we're going to able to do, revisions and exceptions to the code that the development agreement lays out that allows us to basically build this community. If this community is not built like as is, then we will be coming back to you and the city council, and we're going to explain to you why it doesn't work. But as Jeff said, like, you know, what I think is really exciting for me, and I think for you, is, like, let's try something, right? I mean, the property is, you know, like, nothing's happening on Apache, and I drive by, you know, once a week, right? So, hey, let's, and I think that we put all this investment in light rail. I think this is something pretty exciting, and there are a lot of people, and Christina can talk a little bit about it because she lived there, but, you know, we've spent a lot of time in Escalante, and the people, I mean, and Phil can talk a little bit about it, although he's not in Escalante, but I think he knows, I mean, those, you know, people are excited and interested in trying to bring something. So, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, for a year, Don, everybody said, like, what happens?
What I don't want is this thing to be a massive failure. I hope it's a success.
Yes.
I really do. But I just want to know you have contingencies built into this
absolutely.
whole thing.
We have, and if you know, both DMB and Sunbelt, I mean, are both longtime builders who know what's going on. So we certainly have contingency plans. We hope for the best, but we're preparing.
I wish you the best on this one.
Thank you very much.
Other questions? Commissioner Amorosi.
Could it be pet friendly?
Absolutely.
And we hope you'll come by, Phil,
Yes.
with the dogs.
I have a question. Go back to the graphic with the light rail, and what in the world is that on the building?
What do you think it is? I'm sorry.
It looks like cockroaches.
It's Mr. Chairman, it's intended to be, we'll show you it's actually just art. We're going to put a mural up there.
Okay.
It's not, you're not approving it.
Don't go with that art.
Yeah, no.
That is, yeah.
I was just asking you because, you know, I thought it looked like a reindeer, but I think it depends what people
I
think.
mean, I personally drew that.
Oh,
No, just
yeah.
So, yeah, no,
Yes,
there's going to be
with the
art.
development stuff.
Yeah, it's intended to have some different pictures up there.
Yeah,
to
also,
try to
that
be
guy's
interesting.
not supposed to ride a scooter in the crosswalk.
I know, and yes,
Yeah,
yeah, that's true too.
Ticket, yeah. All right, very good. Other questions? Mr. Brown?
So a couple of months ago, we had a project presented by someone on Mill where they were doing some interesting housing, and they had a chart of all the money that could be saved by getting your dishwashing detergent delivered en masse. And so this, of course, is all about getting rid of the cars, which is a fantastic option. And I hate to think how much I really spend on my cars. Can you give us a swag on what the average the average Tempe resident might actually save by getting rid of their hulking
So
iron?
there actually is very good data about this. So $600 a month is the official statistic for personal car ownership.
But that's just the car, not the gas and the insurance. Well, it depends what you're driving, but he's just telling you.
Yeah, and for many residents, moving here will really reduce their total cost because of how much they spend.
It just says that.
Yeah, and then there's people who don't factor in things like depreciation, who may not think of it as saving them a lot of money, but depending on how you do the accounting, it works pretty well.
That's solid. So the shared spaces that can be reserved, I assume those are also for rent. Are they free to nonprofits?
The shared spaces can be reserved, although they're also available for drop-in use, depending on which shared space they are.
Yes,
Would a nonprofit, a true nonprofit like a Little League, for example, be able to get those free?
We haven't thought, we haven't just made decisions about things like that, but part of the goal of the shared spaces is fostering community. So things like how the neighborhood can access them is in the spirit of their purpose.
What percentage of the space, in phase one, you're going to build some housing and some shared space. What percentage is actually going to be dedicated towards mixed use and public access and that sort of thing?
So I think it's about 5,000 square feet of bookable space for the first phase. It's obviously a small minority.
No, that's much larger than we see on huge projects, so I applaud that. Thank you.
Andrew.
Commissioner Johnson.
So I read through this a lot, and there is some vehicular flow through this community, and it looks like there's a lot of potential dead ends, and I'm just curious, and those look like they may be for loading, I would assume for kind of moving, those kinds of things.
Is this the best?
Can you walk through that and describe how that works?
Yeah. Yes. So there's two things to think about with access. One is how it feels, and then the other is how it actually functions. So for the first one of the feel, our intention is for the entire site to feel like a park. So 55% of the site is landscaping, which is, as you guys know, an exceptionally high percentage. We were able to do that by not having so much surface parking. We have just enough for the retail and for visitors, but then we really tried to create a lot of green space. That happens through the shared courtyards, but also in the plazas and then the park in the south, in the center. So that's the intention of how it should feel. And we accomplished that through the width, where they're often fairly narrow paseos, and through the permeable surfaces, so it's DG for a lot of that. And then second, for the function, here really a lot of it was driven by fire and life safety, where we worked very closely to find solutions that were both safe and going to be a good experience for the residents. So what you see going from the northwest corner that sort of bisects the site, we think of that as the spine, so that's accessible to fire. And then we have the verticals going through the site, many of which, but not all, are accessible for fire. The intention of those, though, is for them actually not to be used for day-to-day vehicle purposes, but instead to be available, obviously, for emergency services. But if you wanted to have a couch delivered or another large delivery where you don't want it to stop on the perimeter, then by all means, that's intended for that purpose. But those are the things we had to really think carefully about.
Those are so, for example, on the south side, on the west portion, kind of between what is that, F2 and G2, that drive right there, yeah. So would that be, you would drive in and then back out, or is it turnaround, or how does that work?
That one I think is a 3-point turn, but yeah. And again, that would be for things like a couch being delivered, or obviously the emergency vehicles. Yeah. So we do want to provide residents with the sense of like tranquility.
And those would be just permeable surfaces, that wouldn't be like DG?
That's DG.
Oh, that is DG, so you're driving on DG?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even the spine, which has pavers, so whether it's DG or pavers, it's still rated for the 80,000 pounds for places where fire, that was something that they made sure that we were thinking about.
And that spine isn't for public access?
It's not for regular use.
Cool, thank you.
And we're going to, during the next year when we show the DR, you'll have a better sense of how like that first phase works and what that corridor looks like. And also I would say to all of you, whether it's now or certainly next year, we do have VR, which we've shown the staff and we show the council. So I'm happy to meet with you if you'd like, and we can put the VR on you, and you can actually feel in the middle of East Line. You'll have a sense of what it looks like, which is pretty cool. So we can talk about that.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything you want to add?
Oh, you went public comment.
I don't really want to, but yeah, I think the applicant did a pretty good job explaining it. I'm just going to talk a little bit more about the development agreement that was approved last month by City Council. So as previously stated, it's allowing processing of the zoning map amendment and PAD without concurrent processing of a DPR. So you will see the DPR for phase one next year. processing of the DPR as a public meeting through both the DRC, and it will also go to City Council. It's allowing processing of the future phases, which would be 2 through 5, as minor DPR applications, as long as they are determined to be in substantial conformance to the phase 1 DPR. So if any phase 2 through 5 is going to be in conformance with what council has already approved, you will not see them. It will be done at a staff level. It's allowing reduction of the required vehicle parking quantities for residential use to 0. And it allows exceptions to several TOD requirements related to the ground floor uses, building and parking setbacks, wall heights, ground floor windows, and sidewalk widths, just along River and Wildermuth. I'm going to go to the landscape plan. So open space is provided within the plazas. There's a Apache Plaza near the northwest corner of the site. The Center Plaza farther southeast of that. The main park would be constructed with phase 2. It connects there to Wildermuth Avenue. And then there's a small park over on the east side on River Drive. The fire access routes, as previously explained, will have alternative pavement materials and landscaping to provide alternative paths for pedestrians, bicyclists, and scooters through the development. And you've already seen some of the renderings, but we've got the commercial and mixed-use buildings at the northwest corner of the site on Apache. The upper right-hand corner rendering is from Apache and River, which would be some of the live-work units. The lower left-hand corner would be retail along Apache, and then the lower right-hand corner are the residential buildings that are grouped into pods, and this one's on Wildermuth. And then this is a courtyard view, interior courtyard inside one of the residential pods. A neighborhood meeting was held in April 2019. 4 individuals attended and expressed general support for the project. We have not received further public input outside of that meeting. And we are recommending approval. The applicant has reviewed the conditions. There are several unique conditions. The first one is that construction of the pedestrian or light rail crossing from the south side of Apache Boulevard or money for the crossing has to be placed into escrow prior to issuance of the first C of O for phase 1 residential. The development will have to comply with the parking management plan. A copy was included in the attachments to the staff report. A stipulation limits on-site parking to no more than 110% of those currently shown on the plan. So as you discussed earlier, if there is a significant change to the PAD, if they want to come in and modify the site plan, increase on-site parking spaces, that would need to come back through the public hearing process. And the last one is that there's a temporary treatment plan for the PAD site prior to issuance of the building permit. So that's just to make sure it's desk-proofed, cleared off, et cetera, before it's developed. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Thank you. All right, we have one member of the public, Christina Pucci. Come on down.
Hi, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I am Christina Pucci, as you said it correctly. That's awesome.
I got it.
So I am the president of the Escalante Neighborhood Association, and I attended the meeting in April where Eastline Village, showed their proposal. I just wanted to come out and express my support of them. I'm really excited. My husband and I have lived in Escalante community for 2.5 years. He bikes to work. We are a one-car family. He bikes to work at UPS, and I take the light rail to downtown Tempe to work. So I am super excited to see, a car-free community coming into our neighborhood. And I just want to express too that the river at Eastline Village, affordable housing complex that went in, is just wonderful. And I've met plenty of families from there who are just excited to be in the neighborhood and excited to see the changes that are coming too. So that's really all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Very good. Anyone else from the public? I think we've heard from most everyone. Angela, you want to come talk again? You want to respond to anything that was said? No? Perfect. All right, well, we are not taking action on this. So Commission, any last questions for staff or the applicant? Mr. Sumner?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a suggestion as we go forward. It's fine to look at, and it's absolutely necessary to look at things at this scale. But the way people will experience this neighborhood is at the micro level. So when we get down to the development plan review for individual portions of this, that'll be really important. Looking at this for the first time and seeing a cluster of 10, 20 buildings on a little block, I'm trying to picture what that looks like when I'm on the street. And you can't quite do it yet. And I know you guys aren't there yet, but that'll be important at some point to be able to articulate.
Understand.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
That brings us to commission announcements. Any commissioners have anything you want to talk about, tell us about? We already know you have the most hours and the most meetings.
No, I want to talk about two brief things. I had a chance to eat lunch at a large grocery store in downtown Tempe. It was a little pricey, but the food was great, and and it was busy. And I think almost everyone walked there. So it's a great alternative, although it's a little pricey. Yeah. Well, we're not promoting one brand, but anyway, very, very nice project. The other thing I happened to say, that was yesterday. Today, I went along the river, the lake, over by McClintock, and the construction has commenced on a project that we approved, and then we approved an amended version. It took them a year or so to get their crane certified, but it's concrete construction. And the reason I bring it up is it's large, and they're building 4 levels, count them, 4 levels below grade of parking. So obviously expensive, and obviously a really good commitment to opening up the ground plane and getting that parking underground. I really appreciate that we have a project with minimal parking and almost no parking, but towers are being built. And I bring that up because when people say they can't afford to build underground garages, but they still want to charge the maximum, high price rent that we're seeing along the lake, we have to question whether they're making all the effort they can. This is a great example. I wish that project well.
Fantastic. Anyone else? All right. Do we have any other staff announcements? December 10th, you say, is our next scheduled meeting?
Vice Chair, the December 10th is the next meeting. We will have an agenda ready by next week, and that we will distribute. Obviously, this is one of the projects that will come back on the agenda for action, along with some other.
All right, everyone. If there's nothing else, we are adjourned.